My name's Arthur, and I thank you for joining me as we share together from Deuteronomy chapter 30. Moses is reaching a climax of his presentation to the children of Israel. He's given them rules and instructions about just judgment, how they are to treat neighbours, and he's promised that if they keep these rules, they will be supreme over the nations. But he's given them dire warnings that if they turn away, they will be cursed among the nations. And we look back over the history of 3,500 years, and indeed they have been cursed among the nations. Not to utter destruction, but a continuing destruction, as they have been driven out of the land, and as they have been driven to all parts of the world, and hunted from one place to another. Chapter 30, Moses then raises a crescendo and says, "Choose life. Why will you die?" And it's a question that all of us should face. We all have choices to make, to believe in the Lord Jesus Christ or not. Well, let's read how Moses puts it in Deuteronomy chapter 30. "Now it shall come to pass, when all these things come upon you, the blessing and the curse which I have set before you, and you call them to mind among all the nations where the Lord your God drives you, and you return to the Lord your God and obey his voice, according to all that I command you today, you and your children, with all your heart and with all your soul, that the Lord your God will bring you back from captivity, and have compassion on you, and gather you again from all the nations where the Lord your God has scattered you. If any of you are driven out to the farthest parts under heaven, from there the Lord your God will gather you, and from there he will bring you. Then the Lord your God will bring you up to the land which your fathers possessed, and you shall possess it. He will prosper you, and multiply you more than your fathers. And the Lord your God will circumcise your heart, and the heart of your descendants, to love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, that you may live. Also the Lord your God will put all these curses on your enemies, and on those who hate you, who persecuted you. And you will again obey the voice of the Lord, and do all his commandments, which I command you today. The Lord your God will make you abound in all the work of your hand, in the fruit of your body, in the increase of your livestock, and in the produce of your land for good. For the Lord will again rejoice over you for good, as he rejoiced over your fathers. If you obey the voice of the Lord your God, to keep his commandments and his statutes which are written in this book of the law, and if you turn to the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul. For this commandment which I command you today is not too mysterious for you, nor is it far off. It is not in heaven, that you should say, Who will ascend into heaven for us and bring it to us, that we may hear it and do it? Nor is it beyond the sea, that you should say, Who will go over the sea for us and bring it to us, that we may hear it and do it? But the word is very near you, in your mouth and in your heart, that you may do it. See, I have set before you today life and good, death and evil. In that I command you today to love the Lord your God, to walk in his ways, and to keep his commandments, his statutes, and his judgments, that you may live and multiply, and that the Lord your God will bless you in the land which you go to possess. But if your heart turns away, so that you do not hear, and are drawn away and worship other gods and serve them, I announce to you today that you shall surely perish. You shall not prolong your days in the land which you cross over the Jordan to go in and possess. I call heaven and earth as witnesses today against you, that I have set before you life and death, blessing and cursing. Therefore choose life, that both you and your descendants may live, that you may love the Lord your God, that you may obey his voice, that you may cling to him, for he is your life, and the length of your days, and that you may dwell in the land which the Lord swore to your fathers, to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, to give them. May the Lord bless these words to us. If you have a choice, why would you choose death? But, as the Lord Jesus said, the way of righteousness is hard. The way of death, of course, ends up much harder. And the challenge is to love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul. That is, to live out his commandments, to put them into practice. It's not just a matter of saying, I love God, and disobeying. It's not a matter of performing some ritual and then going on with our lives, ignoring God. To walk in God's way is to live a life of justice and mercy and righteousness. And the instructions are not a long way away. They are here in our hand for us to heed and to do. It is a matter of putting into action the things that the Lord has said. So Moses has set before the children of Israel two options. He is giving them a fresh start. He is driving out the peoples of the land of Canaan, that he might give it to the children of Israel. And when we read the book of Joshua, we'll see that it was the Lord who drove out the inhabitants, who gave Israel victory, who gave them the land. But it was the inhabitants who resisted God and brought destruction upon themselves. The point is that when they have come into the land, when they have rebelled against the Lord and been driven out of the land, and then they remember the word of the Lord has promised, then the Lord would bring them back. So 3,500 years later, we, but particularly the children of Israel, read these words every year. And they remember the promises to God. And over the last nearly 70 years, we've seen the nation being brought back. The horrific things that happened in the Second World War to Israel drove them back. And in Jeremiah it talks about them being hunted back, as well as them being drawn back. So here the Lord will have compassion on you and gather you from all the nations where the Lord your God has scattered you. When I visited Israel, there were some Russian Jews. These people were not believers in God. They were still atheists. They didn't know the God of their fathers. They were confused about what to believe on a spiritual level, so they believed evolution. But they felt comfortable in the land which the Lord had given them. The Lord had brought them back, and they were delighted to be in the land. They were Jewish people. The Lord brought them back, even though they had no faith. The next step will be when the Lord circumcises your heart and the heart of your descendants to love the Lord your God. For many of the Jews, although they know the Scriptures, it is a very divided nation. You look at the Parliament. They don't know which way to turn in their thinking towards God. But the Lord will draw them to himself. The promise to Abraham, those who oppose you will be cursed, applies now to the enemies of Israel. Those who would rebel against Israel and fight against Israel will bring judgment upon themselves. But the challenge for Israel is for them to keep the commandments written in this book of the law. That is, to maintain their integrity, to operate with justice and with mercy. So people always have a choice to make. They had a choice to make as they went into the land. They had a choice to make as they lived in the land. They've had a choice to make as they've lived outside of the land. They've always had the book. And the book has always said, love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul, that it may be well with you. And that is the choice that we must make. For Jesus summed up the commandments of the Old Testament in exactly those words. Love the Lord your God with all of your heart, your soul, your mind and strength, and love your neighbour as yourself. This is the challenge for each of us. But if we turn away, if we do not draw near to God, he will not draw near to us. Heaven and earth are witnesses against us today. We have a choice to make. Choose life. Why will you die?